Hello, so in this video, we're going to go over how to make assignments and then share that with students in Classkick. So when you are making an assignment, make sure you're on the assignment page on the left here. And like I said, yours will probably be blank when you first open it. And then again, you're going to go to that plus button in the top right. And you can start a new blank assignment, but it sounded like you wanted to use this more from basically from a PDF you already had. And so that's where that's where you're going to go to create from file. So when I click that, it is going to be looking at the files that are on my computer. If this is a PDF that you have in your Google Drive, I think your Google Drive should show up here on the left. You see my cursors, and then you could find it there. So I'm going to open up this PDF. This is actually the map of Wilson, but doesn't really matter. And then from this PDF, if it had more than one page, you can actually pick what pages you want. So maybe you only want, let's say it's 5 pages long and you only want pages 1, 3, and 5. You can select those here. You can also select parts of the page. So if I only wanted to have students look at this part of my document rather than the whole thing, I can kind of select that there. If you want them to view the whole thing, you just don't click anything and you just hit next. It's going to show you that preview to make sure you're picking what you want. And then you just hit next again. I don't know what that question is. I'll show you how to add questions or text boxes and what next here in a bit. If you had, let's say, wanted to add another PDF or another document to make it kind of one big document for kids, that's where you would go to add another. You can select your next page or your next document and go from there. So I'm going to get rid of that one because it's the same. And then you just hit finish when you're done. And then this is going to be where you actually create the assignment for kids. So it's only, they call them slides. I think of them as pages. And if you had multiple pages, they would all show up here. This is where you're going to give the name of your assignment. So I'll call this Wilson Map. You can select the subject and the grade. Those are more for if you want to share those with other people through Classkick, but if you're not, you can just leave them blank. Same for the access if you want it public or private. So if you're sharing it with other people, you'd want to make it shared. Otherwise, private would just be that you and your students can view it. And then you can give it a description if you want. You don't really need to. Now, to actually edit the document or kind of add different things to it, you'd actually click on the slide or the page that you want to be looking at, and it's going to make it bigger for you. And then if you look at this little top row here, you have different options. So right now we're on the select mode, that's the cursor, so I can kind of go up and down and around. I can move this kind of like it's a picture around, even though it was a PDF. I could zoom in, I could zoom out. And then what I really like about this is that they actually have a pen mode, as well as I think this is the highlighter mode. So if you want students to go and highlight text, they can do that, and they could, zoom in and see, let's find my name, and then I can actually highlight that area. If you want them to write, whether I don't know if they have a stylus or that would be with their finger, they could write. Not very well, I don't think, with their cursor, but they could actually write. If they make a mistake, then they can always undo. So this is actually kind of just what the student view looks like, FYI. What I think is most helpful is that they can add text boxes. So they would click there, they kind of draw how big they want it to be, and then they could type their answer in. Now, as the teacher, since right now we're basically editing the assignment that we would be giving to students, if you have a fill-in-the-blank PDF, you can add these text boxes like beforehand, like where the blank would be. And that way, when it's given to students, they'll see those text boxes and then they'll be able just to type them. They don't have to add them themselves. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier for students. But it really just depends on the way you want students to be editing this, whether it's by typing in an answer or by writing it or highlighting it. There is an eraser function too, I forgot to point out. So if I draw something, I can always erase it too, or just hit undo. They can add different lines. If so, I don't know. I always think of this with math, but you can add different lines and then change like the thickness and whatnot. Let's get rid of some of those. Let me go back to my selector and then I'll just delete it. They can add links, and so can you. So if there is something else that you want to link onto a certain page, so like in the past, I might give them a question that they're going to answer in Classkick, but I want them to watch a video first. I would add that link. You basically give it a title. So I could say video. I'm just going to come up with a URL. But then it would add it as what the title you gave it, and then the students won't be able to move this around. They'll be able to click that link and then go to it. So then you can have, oh, I'm sorry, my watch just went off. But you could have students then click that link, watch that video, let's say, or whatever article maybe you've linked, and then respond on Classkick still. Let me get rid of that. You can insert pictures through the camera that add image. You can also insert audio. So I always find this really helpful for accessibility. So if let's say I have a text box here that has their directions, I might write the directions. But then another thing I can do is also just record it with my voice. I'm not going to do that because I'm using my microphone for the camera here, but you can record your voice, and that kind of gives them another way of accessing the directions. And then the other, Mike was just talking, so I paused. Sorry. I think what I was saying is, so teachers can insert audio for the student's assignment. Like I said, you can have your directions read for them. But then another way too is that students, they can add text boxes, they can write in an answer. They have this microphone, they can add audio as a response as well. You just have to probably point that out to them because they don't necessarily know to do that off the bat, but it's a nice feature, especially for kids that aren't necessarily great at typing or spelling, for example, or have really bad handwriting. Right next to the microphone, they can add a manipulative. So this is basically, if you remember when we added the page, we could add only part of that PDF if we wanted to. It's doing the same thing, and you can look at their little GIF here, where it's basically if I want them to move different letters, they can do that. I don't know if you would use that a lot, but it's something that you can do. And it's not too hard. I haven't had any big trouble with that. You can add a fill in the blank. So just like we could add a text box for students to type in, we can add this fill in the blank. And again, it's really similar. And then students would type in there. And then you can also add acceptable answers. I usually don't add the acceptable answers just because I'd rather read it and then kind of go from there. You can also add multiple choice. So that was where I usually then would select whatever the right answer is. And it's kind of interesting because you can add a multiple choice, but you can't basically put a descriptor on the letters. You would have to do that in a text box above it. So if I were to add my multiple choice, it's just going to be the letters here, and then I need basically my text box above it, and that's going to have my question, and then I might also say, A represents this, B represents this. So that's kind of something that I don't necessarily like because I wish I could say within this that, just like if you think of a Google form, I could write A, B, but you really can't. But text boxes kind of get around that. So I'm going to get rid of those. And then you can add stickers too. That's more of a feedback tool for them. And then this, I think, would help more with math. But if you're having them write too, you can add a background. So they can either be just different colors, or let me move my camera here. You can see these are some from past assignments that I've used. Let me get rid of that. Oh, I don't want to. So if you have a template, you can add those as well. It's a little bit more advanced, but they have some basic ones. So graphing paper and stuff. And you can see our PDF is kind of in the way, but for teachers that are going to have them graph and stuff like that. And if you ever turn something on you want off, then just go back to the no background and it will get rid of it for you. So that's essentially all the different features that students have access to, as well as teachers beforehand. And then you can also add points too if you're going to be grading it through Classkick. And then I wanted to show you in this video how to assign it to students, and then I'll kind of go through the teacher view in my third video and what that kind of looks like as students are logging on and editing their work. So now that you've kind of made your assignment, you got it all set up with whatever text boxes you want students to fill out or directions that you want to add on there, then you just go from edit to assign here at the top. And so you're going to pick the roster that you would want. So I think we had created one, class 1. And then there are some couple cool features that you may want or not want within Classkick. So if I'm going to be grading it, I probably would turn that on. And then they have this, I think it's really cool. They call it helpers. And what it is, I'll let this GIF kind of play while I explain it. When students are in Classkick, you can see, can I zoom in? Oh, I can. Their student view looks just like this, really similar to the teacher view, except they have this little hand that they can raise in the top right. So they could basically ask for help digitally that way, and it will show up on your teacher view screen that they need help. And something that you can allow, I think that's what this helpers is it allows other students to also come and help them. So they call those peer helpers. So if they, let's say a student needs help and they raise their hand through Classkick, you'll see it on your end, and then so will other students if you turn that on. You could just make it so that you're the only one that views it. But then the peer helpers, if they see another student that needs help, they click basically the hand that shows up on their screen. It pops them into the assignment of the person that needs help, and then they can help that. So it's kind of really up to what your comfort level is. But if you want it to where you're the only one that can see that those hands are raised and not other students, you just turn the helpers off, because that turns off other students being able to see that. You would not want to probably hide it if you're going to be assigning this. This is more for like maybe work you want and that was done in the past, or work that students are going to do in the future, and you don't want to get them too confused with all that long list. But if you're going to be assigning it to them like the next day, you wouldn't want to hide it, and you also wouldn't want to lock it. Lock it basically stops or prevents students from the ability to edit. So if I, let's say, had an assignment that had a due date on Friday, once whatever my deadline time is, then I would probably go in here and then I would lock the assignment, and that way I know basically kind of that snapshot in time of who's done and who's not, and students can't finish it after the fact, if that makes sense. The last thing I wanted to show you before I start my third video is this class code. So this assignment has a class code, and it's also a link right here, and this is what I would be posting to Google Classroom as part of my assignment. So when you make an assignment, you can add either Google Docs or links or YouTube videos. I would add this link, and then as we were showing how the teachers log in, the students, when they click that link, will get that login page, and they'll be actually typing. They can't log in. Actually, they might be able to log in with Google. I'm not 100% sure. You might have to have the paid account for that to work for kids. I'm not 100%. But anyway, whenever they log in, then they would pick the name from that roster that we created where we typed in their names, unless, again, you have that paid account, where then they just go through Google and it's ready to go. But once they log in, then they just basically view the assignment just like we were when we had clicked on it. They don't have like, there's no like landing page where they have to click into the assignment. It just goes straight to the assignment. That's kind of the nice thing about that link, is that it goes directly to it. So this link, when you go to assign right here, is how you would share that with students. And then they don't really ever need to even look at this code. They just need that link. They need to log into Classkick, and then the assignment pops up right away.